Hello, greetings everybody. We are taking pages 174 through 179 out of the Pet Safety Bible today to discuss burns in your pets. Now, just like with us humans, the skin is actually the largest part of the body. I think that's often lost on a lot of us. We just don't think of the skin as an organ, but it's a living, breathing, functioning system of the body. And it covers and contains everything. Obviously there's a lot of surface area, so it's subjected to a lot of things. We've talked about absorbed poisons before. Pets can get cuts and scrapes, they can get bites and stings, all those kind of things. But the skin is also subject to being burned, and that can mean by heat, meaning the sun, fire, hot pavement. It can be chemicals, cleaners, that are on the floor that are caustic. It can also be de-icing salts in the winter can actually burn, but that's also a poison as well. Hey, Gail, nice to see you today. And let's see what else. It can be burned by heat, by chemicals, electrical things as well. So let's just talk a little bit about the basics. First, second, and third degree burns, and that's really not much different than us humans. A first degree burn, the skin is pink, and the one difference, however, is there is fur. So in all of these cases, there can actually be singed fur, but in first degree burn, not so much. Most of the time with a first degree burn, we're talking sunburn. And this one absolutely positively is, good conscientious pet parenting. Don't let your pets be out in the heat too long. Make sure they always have shade to retreat to. Typical areas for sunburn are those upright ears, the tips of the ears, the nose, and on some of our lighter skinned, less furry pals that like to lay belly up in the sun, they can get a belly skin burn too. So just like with us, anytime something's cooking, we want to stop that cooking and cool it off. Most of the time, once again, first degree burns, pink skin, cool it off with cool water, not ice. There's only really one time in Pet First Aid I ever talk about ice per se, because what ice does is it restricts blood vessels, it closes them down and prevents circulation. The one time, as many of you know, that I would advise using ice is for a tongue injury, because there's the lingual artery in there, which can be a super heavy bleeder, and we want to do all we can to minimize blood loss. Sorry, I guess I've got my computer and all kinds of bells and whistles going here. Let's see if I can hit a silencer or two. All right, so cool water is one of the best things, to cool off a burn. Afterwards, pure aloe vera gel. If you actually live in the Southwest and have aloe vera plants growing, slice one open and scoop that gel out. The leaves are on pet poison list if they're ingested, but the gel inside is fine, and pets can actually consume the gel. Hey, Barbara, nice to see you joining in too. So aloe vera is great. Now, if you buy aloe vera in a tube or any other kind of container, read those labels carefully, because sometimes aloe vera is used, on the body as a cream or an ointment, and they'll put in perfume or alcohol, and that would absolutely positively sting if you put that into a burn. So we want just pure aloe vera gel. Hey, Scott, nice to see you too today. So first degree burn, pink. We're going to most of the time do our first aid at home. We're going to cool off that burn with cool water and apply a Neosporin or an aloe vera type gel to soothe it, and make sure it doesn't become an open wound from that constant licking or scratching. Sometimes there's not really a wound and suddenly there is, simply because, pets are trying to alleviate the pain and they use that tongue of theirs to do so, but it then opens up the skin and causes infection, and then we have another issue. Second degree burns, we know basically because of blisters and pus. I wish there was really a better name. I guess it's a white plasma that kind of comes to the surface and sometimes seeps out. Second degree burns, especially if those blisters pop, have extensive tissue damage and are very, very painful. They're actually even more painful than a third degree burn, because even though a third degree burn implies much more damage, the skin is generally black or charred. their nerve endings have been burnt as well. So at least for the time being, the pet may not be feeling as much pain as a second-degree burn. But do realize both second and third-degree burns are emergency situations. You want to cool off, stop that cooking, get the pet away from that heat source, whatever it happens to be. If it's a chemical burn, wash it off. The exception to that, and let me put that out there, is if it's a chemical burn from a dry substance. Hey, Deborah, nice to see you. Good healing wishes to Cheddar. I'm glad the surgery went well. If it's a dry substance, a chlorine, say a granulated chlorine for your swimming pool, the kind of Comet or Ajax or anything like that you would scrub out a sink or a tub with. Even laundry detergent. If it's something dry in your pet's fur, don't add water immediately to wash it away and to cool off the burn. Carefully brush as much away as you can of that dry, powdery element. If you have the kind of pet that will let you get out a dustbuster or a vacuum, do so. Suck it away. And then when most of it's gone, flush it profusely with lots and lots of water. The thing is, if you add the water immediately and there's a lot of that dry or granulated substance on the pet's fur, you're going to actually activate the chemical and more burn will take place right to the skin immediately. So that's why we wouldn't do that. Do remember both second and third degree burns, and all of this is here in the Pet Safety Bible, pages 174 to 179. Second and third degree burns are highly susceptible to infection because a lot of tissue damage has been done. The skin has been opened up. So in addition to cooling off and stopping that burn, you want to cover it loosely, nothing too tight. You want it to breathe, and you don't want to apply pressure to something that's already painful. But you do want to cover it as you're transporting the pet to veterinary or emergency vet care, simply because you don't want an infection to get in. So very, very important with that. Stop the burn, cover it loosely. And what is something you may have to do with the second or third degree burn even before you start the cooling process? Anybody have an idea out there? If I were to wear one, it would look a little something like this. A muzzle. Even our bestest friends may be in a lot of pain from a burn. Dogs run through campfires. They steal that last burger or hot dog off the grill when we're not looking. And this is really painful. If any of you have ever burned yourself just on the oven or the stove, our reflexes are fast and we pull away quickly, but it can be very painful. And if you've ever done anything more, insidiously hurtful to yourself, it's awful. One of the things I did as a kid, my dad said, don't touch that soldering iron. So what did I do? I grabbed the soldering iron with my hand. And, I guess I learned my lesson, at least about that one thing at that point in time. But at least dogs don't necessarily do what we tell them not to. It's not quite that level of communication as us humans are known to do when we're told not to do something, that we have to do it. But do all you can to prevent these emergencies from happening. Supervise around cookouts and around campfires. When you're cooking, make sure the cat can't jump up on the countertop or the stove. Also, it's more of a fire hazard, but it can lead to burns and house fires, which are another way pets get burned. Make sure you have knob covers, or your stove is situated in a way that dogs, if they counter surf, they can't turn on buttons. A huge problem the fire department will tell you about is for people that don't turn their pots and pan handles inwards. Very often we ourselves just whack that handle if it isn't turned inward, and we spill it, and depending on what kind of stove you have, if it's an open flame, it can become a disaster with the grease and fire. Another terrible thing we do as humans is we sometimes put pizza boxes on the stove. And they can, get hot, especially if we suddenly turn on a burner or accidentally turn on a burner. So do keep all of those safety precautions in mind. At this time of year, a really important thing we don't want to have burned are these paws. Cover them up for those short potty breaks if the pets have to go out, when the pavement is hot. A lot of it's been going around Facebook and everywhere else. A great test is to take the top of your hand, not so much the palm, but the top of your hand, which is really more tender, and lay it down on the asphalt or the concrete and hold it there, press it there hard for about 5 to 7 seconds. If you can't do that, your dog or cat should not be walking on that surface. Even when we're comfortable at like 75 to 85 degrees outside as far as the air temperature, that surface temperature can be up into the 130s and 140 degrees. And, even hotter as the day pursues because, it just keeps collecting that heat. I haven't done this as a personal test, but I am told you can fry an egg on a surface if it's 131 degrees. So if the surface is 135 or 140 on a 75 to 85 degree day, that is too doggone hot for your pet's paws. So please, please, please keep that in mind. So just a reminder, 1st degree burn, pink skin. 2nd degree burn, you recognize it by the blisters and the pus. And the 3rd degree burn is charred. Sometimes it might even be white. And I hate my food analogies, but I think they make an impact because not only is it something we can understand and relate to, but I think it just gives us the willies thinking about this kind of thing happening to our pets. Black or charred is like that steak or burger you left on the grill too long. That could be your dog or cat's skin if it gets burned. It's because it's meat, it's tissue as well. Also, the tissue can sometimes be white if it isn't to the point of being charred. And think of it like if you take a chicken breast and throw it in boiling water, it goes from that fleshy pink color to that more solid white color. So obviously, neither of these are any kind of situations we ever want our dogs or cats in. So remember, when you have a dog or a cat, you have a toddler for life. So supervise, supervise, supervise. If it does happen to be an electrical burn from a pet that's been chewing on a wire, there are other ways that can happen too, stepping on a live wire or whatever. Number one, get that wire away from the pet's body first before you touch them. It's a good idea to take a wooden stick, make sure it doesn't have a metal tip on the end if it's like a broom or something. Knock off your circuit breakers to the room to make sure that isn't still conducting electricity to the pet. And then what you're going to want to do is check for breathing and pulse. If they don't have them, hopefully everybody out there knows what to do, or you'll sign up for a pet first aid class and learn cardiopulmonary cerebral resuscitation. But it's such an important skill. Other things you need to do are really a quick head to tail checkup of the pet as well, because when electricity enters the body, it also needs to find an exit. And sometimes there can be a bleeding wound somewhere else on the body where it tried to leave. If you're lucky and it was a tiny jolt, the pet might just be a little bit out of it, or just may already be up and around, and you may only recognize it by burns around the mouth or on the paw or wherever it happened to be. But I just can't say enough about being prepared. We're already seeing in the Gulf that there may be some tropical storms brewing, and certainly from a tropical storm, pets can end up with burns, whether it's a lightning strike or whether it's flooding or fires or earthquakes or anything that has caused electrical lines to come down and other things to happen. So I just want to urge everybody, as we're on this hurricane season, but realize, like my friends in California just experienced, it's earthquake season all year round, and there's no better time to get prepared, to brush up on pet first aid skills, to make sure you have that doggy shampoo, Scott, to wash off the dogs that may be in flood waters, to have everything else out of your emergency kit. And if you haven't heard me say this before, this is my new thing for pet first aid and emergency kits, because some of the stuff we're putting in those kits, the writing is so doggone small, and I'm really starting to need these to read even some of the directions and all. So just make sure you add all the things, and if you already have a kit, go back through it now. This is a great time to make sure nothing is expired or that you haven't used something that you need to replace. And do practice those drills. And remember, with your pets too, and any human that's old enough to ever be left alone needs to be able to know how to handle the pets, because if they are ever home alone, that's just Murphy's Law, when life is going to happen and they're going to need to evacuate. I know I got off topic, but there's just always so much to say about keeping our furry family members safe. So, do look in pages 174 to 179 of the Pet Safety Bible, soon to be the Dog Safety Bible and the Cat Safety Bible, to brush up on your skills as far as first, second, and third degree burns, chemical burns, and electrical burns, and just give some belly rubs and ear scratches from me. Great seeing you all today. Take care. Bye-bye.